Yeah, we were talking about the future, what you saw
Yeah.
as the future of the series.
2 years. People ask me all the time, do I know how it's going to end, which I love, and I always feel like it's their own insecurity about like, A, it's going to end, like life eventually ends, and B, you have a plan, right? This isn't all going to be a jack-off. And I was kind of like, would you honestly think that is there an ending that could satisfy you? You know? There's a way to do it. I have an idea about what I want to do. I have an idea with the taste I want to leave in people's mouth at the end of the meal. But 2 more years would be great. It will be permanent, as permanent as anything is, you know. I loved our success. I mentioned this, you know, for the first season, and then I just looked at David Chase and I was like, he did that for, 80 episodes. If I could do 80 episodes of this show, 85 episodes of this show or whatever, and tell that story completely in those chapters, it would be a tremendous accomplishment for me.
Do you have anything else that you're working on right now?
Yeah, I do. It's a weird thing. Bob Odenkirk, who is a writer and friend of mine, said, I think you'll learn now that you have earned the right in Hollywood to make any TV show you want called Mad Men. When I tell the story of what I'm interested in doing, it's the same as it ever was. You know, I've got a lot of irons in the fire. I certainly would welcome doing another TV show. Not immediately, but certainly would welcome it. I would never expect this to happen again. But I have film things to write and direct. I have lots of things in the drawer that I've written already that have been rejected that are now interesting to people because they're mine. Rod Serling said that he spent his first 7 years or something of his career writing stuff, sending it out, getting rejected, sticking it in a drawer, and then he spent the rest of his life pulling things out of the drawer. And then there's, I'm someone who enjoys a challenge. And I think part of that is to avoid, you can hedge, it's a hedge against failure to change. It really is. Because the measurement is a whole new system. If I write a play, what did they say? It's not as good as Mad Men? Whatever, it's a play. It's a totally different thing. So I'm writing a play. And I'm happy that I think that I will be indulged for some period of time to creatively express myself. And but there's still not a lot of trust. There's still not a lot of trust. Even after taking the audience to a place where no one ever thought they would go, I don't know that my instincts are really, I haven't found the people who trust them yet.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's very expensive. I think it's a very fearful time. It's not a risk-taking time. And I think I'm not done with the show yet. I think that no one wants to interfere with that, believe it or not. Squeezing something in like that, it's like, I can do something shitty if I want to, but as I said, I'm delusional, so. I have a lot of things. There's no one who sits where I am, who you ask that question to, is not gonna freak out. Am I right?
Yes.
It's like, I'll tell you one thing. I have been lucky enough to befriend people who've had multiple successes in their life. And David Chase being with the Rockford Files and then having the Sopranos and all these, you know what I mean? Larry Gelbart, Mike Nichols. These are people who you don't have to know them to look at their resume and say how did this person keep doing amazing shit? They didn't become head cases about the success. And they didn't think it was the end. And they didn't sell out. And they just they didn't cash in. They just tried to keep looking for challenges. And I don't know that I'll ever interact with an audience the way that I have with these things, and I'll certainly never go from zero to this again. But, it all becomes normal at a certain point, and you're just another writer working, so.
Do you think television has lived up to its potential?
Yeah, I think television, there are plenty of people who've taken advantage of what's unique about television and got into our lives. There's a lot of garbage in the movies. A lot of entertainment is popcorn. It's been hard for me to admit, but everything shouldn't be steak. Everything does not have to be coq au vin. It doesn't have a French name or else it is. There are things There are things for people who like bear baiting and blood and bullfighting. There are things. I don't like the manipulative part of it, where the machinery is together and I'm going to satisfy your sense of justice so that you will be complacent. I don't like that. But I do think that there are some amazing highs in television, and there's a permanence to it on some level. Growing up and seeing Roots and Holocaust and The Sopranos, All in the Family and Maude and these, the comedy is even more complicated and seems attached to its time. People feel less alone in a great way. It becomes part of their education. It becomes an entertainment that is substantial. They feel close to other people. They communicate with an artist. There's light shed on their lives. They're diverted. They're lifted from their burdens. They're entertained. I can't tell you, as television changes into something else, that part of it, whatever that is, that comes from the ancient plays, the ancient dramas, that's not going to go away. I listen to old-time radio, and that's what it's all about too. And there's garbage on there too. Don't think just because it's old that they weren't making garbage too. It's it's a commercially driven medium, and sometimes you're doing Henry V, and sometimes you're doing Regarding Henry.
What advice would you give to aspiring writers today?
I have my set things that I tell aspiring writers. Don't stop writing. Don't try and gauge the marketplace. Write about what matters to you. And if you think you're going to come out here and set a time limit for yourself, you should get out of it right now, because there are people who can't live without doing this. And don't let the show business part overtake your creativity. You can spend so much time trying to get meetings and hustling and trying to pitch, and trying to sell something that's never going to happen. What advice would I give to young writers? The last part of it is, don't spend all of your time on the show business part of it, on the networking, trying to sell pitches, trying to give them what they want, trying to, whatever that is, get an agent, all these other things. You cannot spend all your time on that. That is way easier to deal with and way easier to focus on and way easier to spend your time on when you could be writing. Spend your time writing and then use those products and try and get that. You have to do both, but it's way easier. That's why people are always trying to sell pitches. I'm like, you want to sell a pitch because it's the easy way out. Here's an idea. You like the idea. You give me some more ideas and I'll write it. Nothing good comes out of this process. There's not one show that people like that has come out of this process. All of them have the story of a person with a strong personality like me behind it, who's written it by themselves, on spec usually, and they're fighting for it. And some benefactor, some angel comes out and says, I think this is interesting. And then it becomes interesting, and it becomes financially successful. Everything. I'd be challenged for someone to find an example that has not happened this way. Because somebody was saying, you know what, I'm not doing it your way anymore. Just let me speak uninterrupted here for a second and see if you can sell it.
Who was your benefactor? Who would you say that was?
AMC. Absolutely. I mean, I was validated by David and being on The Sopranos, but Christina Wayne, said, oh my God, about this show. This could be a great show. And Rob Sorcher also. And they were the ones who had this novel idea of like, let's do quality. Nobody's doing quality right now except for HBO. Let's put quality on basic cable. That will be our brand. And they did Broken Trail with Robert Duvall, which is still the highest rated thing that's ever been on that network, and they won the Emmy. That's an original movie. Then they did Mad Men. They didn't make anything in between. They did not make any pilots that didn't happen. Then they did Breaking Bad. That's what they did on the network. And then they left. So she is my benefactor, and I fought with her plenty, and she fought with me about John Hamm, and she didn't like the second episode of the show, and she always, in the end, made the right decision as far as I was concerned, and she believed in the show. And Vlad Wolinets, who is still at the network, who just left, also, I mean, Vlad was always like, leave this guy alone. We will be successful. He's the reason it's on film. They tried to get me to shoot it, you know, in videotape, which was not even close to as advanced as it is now. And Vlad was like, you're really gonna show something on high def video in the middle of all these classic movies? And it's been one of the greatest draws for the show, is that feeling of how it looks.
Well, thank you, Matt, so
Great,
much.
thank
And
you.
hopefully we'll be back in a few years.